Hey guys, it's Vanessa from True Crime in Colorado. Really quick, everyone is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. I know most people were making videos yesterday on TECIA Stauch's first court appearance in El Paso County. I thought I would add some more to that since after her court appearance, news broke that TECIA had assaulted a deputy en route from South Carolina to Colorado. We reported on it on our community wall on our channel pretty soon after it happened, and a lot of people were in disbelief, which is understandable because she is a one-woman circus. Her public defender certainly has her work cut out for her. I was able to find out a little bit more about the assault, so I'll touch on that in just a moment. But first, yesterday morning, TECIA arrived back home in Colorado. She had her first court appearance in El Paso County at 1:30 p.m. with her very happy public defender and was wearing a turtle suit. And you could see a visible bruise on her right arm, which I'm just speculating could possibly be from the scuffle on the way back. So I'll play the short audio of that court appearance right here.
In custody.
Okay, thank you. And if you would go ahead and state your name, please.
Okay, TECIA'S.
And Ms. Stauch, you saw the video advisement, it went over your rights. Do you have any questions with regards to your rights? And Ms. Strobel, are you waiving advisement?
We are, Judge. We'd asked the court to set it for first appearance.
Okay. Have you had an opportunity to go over charges and possible penalties with Ms. Stauch, or do you need to do that at a later date?
Judge, we have advised Ms. Dow of the arrest charges in this case. Obviously, when formal filing is conducted, we will do it again.
Okay. All right. So, Ms. Stauch, at this point, I'm not going to read through the charges with you. Your counsel will do that at the appropriate time. I do need to set it for the first appearance. I've been given the date of March 11th at 4 p.m. in Division 15. However, Mr. Allen, Judge Warner reached out to me and asked me to find out if you were requesting the 18th instead. I don't know if there's a need for additional time for filing.
Actually, if I can ask my victims that are in the courtroom, Judge, what date they prefer, I could be fine with either one.
Okay, and then obviously I'll find out from Ms. Strobel what her position is.
Judge, we're available either day.
Okay.
And Judge, we're fine with the March 11th at 4 p.m.
Okay. Then this matter will be set for March 11th at 4 p.m. in Division 15. Ms. Stauch continues to be held with no bond. Anything else for today?
No, Judge.
Okay. Thank you. And you're all set.
Also yesterday, the lead prosecutor on this case, Michael Allen, spoke briefly to reporters about the status of their case and the arrest affidavit. The affidavit is sealed at this time, but what's been reported is that TECIA wants to see what they have and has requested for it to be unsealed. Here's the clip from the prosecutor.
With video advisement, which is just really her being advised of what charges she was arrested on. Those will not be the formal charges necessarily, although we probably will have the same formal charges. That will occur next Wednesday, 4 o'clock p.m. in Division 15. So that's where we are today.
Okay, is that also going to be the jail video advisement or the
No,
courthouse?
she'll be present in the courthouse that
Okay,
day.
okay.
About bond.
So she's being held on a first-degree murder charge, so she's being held without bond going forward.
Okay. Can you tell us anything about what her defense attorney has petitioned at this point?
No, I can't. Those are still under a protection order basically at this point, any motions that defense has filed and that sort of thing. And again, the arrest warrant is still being sealed, so I can't talk about the facts. I'm not going to talk about any of those things going forward. She is innocent until proven guilty. We need to remember that as well.
Mm-hmm. And talk about the importance of having everything under seal in this case, particularly help the public understand why.
Yeah, so the request for the affidavit to be under seal was made by law enforcement because it was made during the pending investigation. We want to make sure that we're protecting information so that if any suspects are found, that we can have some private information that they wouldn't necessarily have unless they're involved with the case. So that's typically why that's done. And I'm talking in a general sense when I say that. That was basically the request in this case, that we keep it under seal for investigative purposes, and it remains under seal today.
At this point,
brought back
Oh, at this point, Gannon's body still has not been found.
I'm not going to talk about the facts of the case at this point. I want to make sure that we're not trying the case in the media.
Why was she brought back over land rather than by air?
That was a decision made by law enforcement, not necessarily by the DA's office, and so I would have to refer you to the law enforcement agency.
Any speed bumps on the way home?
I have no idea.
Is it true that judge asked for the advisement to be today? Because typically an inmate, it takes a day or two after they're booked. Can you talk about that and why that request was made?
I'm not sure what led to the advisement occurring today at 1:30 as opposed to tomorrow at 1:30. I got the notification and came over to the courthouse, so I'm not sure why it came up so quickly.
In general terms, are cases without a body more difficult to prosecute?
It's a new challenge on a case like a homicide case without a body, but it doesn't necessarily make it necessarily more or less difficult.
How long until you guys think the affidavit will be unsealed?
It would be impossible to guess at this point.
And would your office support media coverage during the court proceedings?
Generally speaking, I think the public has a right to know what's going on in the courthouse. I don't have any particular position on that. It's up to the judge.
Would your office be willing to make a deal with her in return for locating the body?
That's way too premature at this point to even have that discussion.
You said not having a body provides new challenges. What are those challenges?
I think those challenges would be obvious, and I don't want to get into the facts of this case, so I'm going to avoid answering that question for now.
In terms of previous experience with your office, though, we did just do a trial without a body.
Sure, but every case is different. We need to keep that in mind as well.
What would you say to Gannon's family? Stauch family?
When I talk to Gannon's family, I just want to make sure that they remain patient. This is going to be a long, drawn-out process, and they need to keep that in mind. We're in the justice system now, and it's going to take a long time.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Michael, do you have any worries about not being able to use the death penalty as borrowing?
Keep rolling.
Can you say that again?
I guess, do you have any worries about not being able to use the death penalty as a tool for a plea deal?
So again, I don't want to get into talking about potential pleas in this case. It's way too premature for that. I am disappointed that the death penalty is going away because it is a valuable law enforcement tool. Absolutely.
Why is it valuable?
Because it's used oftentimes to hold the most egregious violent offenders accountable.
But it doesn't go away retroactively. Right?
It does not go away retroactively, so potentially there could be still a death penalty sentence in the state of Colorado. I anticipate, though, based off of comments made by the governor, that he will commute the death sentences that are currently on the books. So for all intents and purposes, if that happens, the death penalty would be gone in Colorado immediately.
You said it can be used in some of the most egregious cases. Would you call this one of the most egregious cases?
I'm not going to get into the facts of this case, and I would be getting too close to that.
So we've all been learning from multiple sources about TECIA'S past, her extensive criminal past, including violent offenses, and her past behaviors as being described by acquaintances. A lot of us saw the post made on social media by one of her boyfriends yesterday discussing his opinion of her. The post says, "This girl is my ex-girlfriend. We were still dating when she met Al Stauch, the father of the boy she killed. I always knew that the girl was crazy, but it took me over 3 years to figure it out. To know she was capable of something like this, though, is beyond me. She was a teacher when I met her, FFS, sorry, I can't get demonetized again, and we met on a co-ed softball team. I'm heading to work right now, but if anyone has any questions, I can gladly answer them later when I get off work. They already have enough evidence against her for a life sentence. The only way she will have the possibility of parole after serving a life sentence, 25 years, is if she comes clean and tells what happened and what she did with the body. I honestly don't think she will make it past 2 years before she kills herself, especially if her daughter turns on her. This is just unbelievable and so sad for everyone involved." We also know that TECIA had been fired from her job at Mountain Ridge Middle School just days before Gannon's disappearance. She was still going through the orientation process, and the only explanation given that I could find was that there was discrepancies in her employment application and her background. One has to wonder if her termination played into her mental status or mental stress the weekend that Gannon disappeared. Okay, so let's get into TECIA'S latest antics. And there's two things that I want to touch on. So the first thing is the screenshot that's been floating around, I don't know, a couple days. And it again talks about this Peyton Marie, who I've said in a couple videos is clearly either a shared account that maybe Tisha had access to, and then it's also got family members on there, or could be close friends. I don't know. But it's someone who has intimate knowledge of the happenings of the case and also would have access to her bank statements. So it's not that hard to figure out that it's one of the two. So as we know from following this case, Tisha has an explanation for absolutely everything. And no worries, because if that first explanation doesn't work, she has 3 more waiting in the wings to back up the first explanation. And this has to do with the 950 miles that she put on the rental car. So the first explanation is that she was not driving. And the second explanation is that Budget Rental Car made a mistake when they entered the miles. And the third explanation kind of ties into the first, that she was at the police station, so she couldn't be driving. So who knows? So basically, if they are able to prove that she was driving the rental car at that time, the next explanation is the old typo excuse, like the Watts case. So yesterday, late afternoon, early evening, reports came out that there was an incident that happened on Tisha's extradition trip to Colorado. Reports are that the decision was made by law enforcement to bring her back via ground transportation, and that sometime during her trip, Tisha was able to slip out of her handcuffs and attack one of the deputies on the transport team. They are being pretty tight-lipped about this at the moment, but the only additional information I was able to gather was that she allegedly punched the deputy, and it was serious enough to cause them to stop the transport and stay those 12 hours in Kansas while that deputy sought medical treatment at a local hospital. I would assume that an additional charge for assaulting an officer could be added when they advise her of her formal charges. It's unfortunate that we will be unable to hear Tisha's social media explanation for this. I'm sure that the driver of the van just slammed on the brakes, causing her hands to slip out of the handcuffs, and while she was attempting to brace herself on the seat, her fist accidentally collided with the deputy's face 1 or multiple times, but clearly a misunderstanding. The other newest reports on social media today are that Tisha's crap is currently being wrapped up in green tarps and put on the curb, and someone is coming by to pick it up for her. And on that note, Gannon's father, Stauch, has formally filed for divorce from Tisha Stauch. So that's the latest update on Tisha today. It's hard to believe that she's still making the news while in custody, but she is. In fact, I was thinking while I was recording this that I probably missed 5 stories break on her while I was making this video. And I know I'm not even attempting to pretend that I'm giving these without bias. Obviously, I said at the beginning that everyone is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. We all know that. But it's difficult because, I have a child that's 1 year older than Gannon. And when you have cases that involve a child, it's really tough. And to make it even worse, her behavior and her demeanor just makes it all the more infuriating. She was able to get out of restraints in a van full of law enforcement and attack a deputy serious enough to put him in the hospital. Then imagine what she was capable of putting Gannon through. And it hurts my heart for what he probably went through and for what his family's going through. So that's the latest news on Tisha Stauch, and we will continue to bring you all of the updates on Gannon's case. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so that you can get all of our upcoming videos.